Let's go, girls. Bow now, bow now, bow now, 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 now.
You're doing the intro. You're hosting, right, Mikey?
Yeah.
Okay, go
Unless you
ahead.
want to, Doug.
I just came off of work right now. That's why I inhaled my face full of poultry breasts. So
Gross. Okay, fine. Austin will host.
A
This is his favorite movie of all time, apparently now. So, just kidding.
fun one.
Well, now we know what Austin thinks is fun. This is Slashers, home of your favorite podcast where we talk about your favorite horror media. It is me, your host, Mikey, joined here with my colleague, co-host, and cohorts, Doug and Austin. Boys, say hello to the mutant goons from Beyond.
hey, all you MGBs from beyond. I hope you got your pork buns ready and you oiled your your napkins. Yeah, this is Doug. We're gonna be in for a good time.
Get out your pork, cut a hole in it because we're gonna be crying by the end.
When you say get out your pork, are you talking about your hog or like a piece of pork?
Piece of pork and cut a hole in it,
Oh, okay.
like you did in the movie.
Yeah.
That's the pork pocket pussy. Well, let me ask you a question. Maybe you two might know, but is a pig pork?
Ask Miss Piggy or Kermit the Frog.
I was gonna say
However,
Kermit might know.
leave it to Doug. We haven't even started, Doug. So if you can't tell, we decided to give Aid and what's our other host's name? Oh yeah, Jason a break from recording these uncomfortable films, and we decided to take one for the team. So Doug has ever so graciously recommended a film that we all are going to be reviewing. But before we get into that, we have a very special guest online today. CJ, please say hello to the mutant goons from beyond.
Riveting.
How's it been? This is the first time we've seen you since you became a hot pop-up potato. And you surprised us by bringing the baby on screen. We'll blur her out on YouTube because we haven't signed any release forms, but how's it going being a dad?
It's good. I like it. It's tired, but I mean that's kind of standard. But she's doing good. Baby is healthy and mom is healthy, so it's good. Everything's good. It didn't go the way we planned, but that's such is life. So just got to take it how it comes. But baby's doing great, and she's passed out. Heyo.
There you go. I mean, how much did it cost for them to repair the hot tub? Because didn't you have a water birth?
No, she did have a C-section though, so I'm sure that'll cost more, but we haven't gotten that bill yet. Can't wait to get that treasure. I'm sure it'll be a very, very cheap because we live in America.
Florida, yeah.
Even worse in Florida, yeah.
Oh, the cost of living in the land of the free.
Seriously. Even with insurance too.
Yeah. I think the average, what I've read is like with insurance, the average cost of a baby is like $10,000. But I wouldn't know because the birth parents of Olivia were on government assistance. So everything was free.
Oh,
Yeah, well, there you go. I was going to say you could also just file bankruptcy, like Chapter 11, and just say, "Hey, I'm with Best Buy, or I'm with what's the other place that folded? Some company just folded. The CEO just jumped off. The
Hollywood. Oh, no,
Hollywood. No, Bed Bath Beyond and Body Works. That's the one.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, Doug, what's been new with you, sir?
Oh man, what hasn't been new? Just a lot of stuff here and there. We've been working on Noelia. Mikey was just here not too long ago, so we did a read through on the script completed so far. So we're just going over that. Me and Mikey got casted in. There's some. I have the script right here.
There's something inhumane in the
Inhuman.
woods.
It's Inhuman. I got yelled at today for that. He's like Inhumane. The director.
Oh.
He's like it's a typo. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So I'll go ahead and change that. But yeah, we did that, and then we filmed some B-movie TV stuff.
So yes, I was visiting Doug and Yahira in the land of California, where you know how to party. And speaking of movies that are not great or fun to sit through, y'all took me to something that was a little difficult to get through as well, and that was the Museum of Death. So what a perfect opportunity to bring it up during the cruel summer. If you don't know what the Museum of Death is, it's basically a museum dedicated to death. Where we have crime scene photos, autopsy photos. When you walk in, there's all the pictures of the Black Dahlia, like the original ones. They have memorabilia from the serial killers. They have ancient Japanese swords that have killed people, and embalming classes, embalming tools. Oh, I don't want to give away too much because I don't want to take away their business, but everyone really enjoyed themselves. I almost had a panic attack in the beginning, but after the first room, I was like, okay, I can vibe with this now.
Yeah, so Museum of Death's pretty cool. I mean, there was a long line too. There's a lot of people going there, so they're making their money. But if you are not a fan, I shouldn't say that, but yeah, they had if you like Faces of Death, Traces of Death, Hood Site, stuff like that. There's I never thought I'd see it, but there was a severed body in a Von shopping bag picture. That one was I never seen that before.
Oh, the head.
The head, yeah, that was really creepy. So it's like these crime scene
gross.
photos, yeah, and then you get the original drawings from you know, Gacy, Bundy, Dahmer, yeah, it's interesting if you're into that sort of thing. But I know Mikey, we were used to. I was like, oh, look at this one, and then Mikey like faces are split open and stuff.
There's like a whole aisle for like car accidents, and one of them had this guy's face that was just rubbed off from, I guess, skidding on the street. But it was just the beginning, because I've never been there. Doug and Yahira have been there a while. Jake's been there. Jake likes it, and so I didn't know what to expect. And so walking in, it's very much like rotten.com, where you see all this real images of people dying. And I was just kind of like, I feel like I shouldn't be looking at this. Like, I don't know. But as soon as you get past that first hallway, because we made the mistake of like, you know, looking at everything and reading everything, and I was like, but once you get past the hallway, it turns a little more into educational stuff, which is like, okay, well, now I can kind of like put some merit behind it. Like, the embalming room does teach you how to embalm, and they have all the tools laid out, and there's a video playing. Even though the video is gross, it shows you like what they do. I've always been fascinated by shrunken heads. I've always been like, how do they make that? And even though it was gross, there was a whole, like, they had shrunken heads, and they had like a paper that talked about how like the tribes made shrunken heads. So there was a lot of history stuff and a lot of scientific stuff as well. They had animal skeletons, which I saw elephant skull, which is huge. It's about half of me.
Trump size. I'm
not very big to begin with. So, but yeah, it was interesting. I wonder like I wonder what's in people's brains when they go, like, because there's a guy that was in front of us that said he goes there like every month. And I remember Jake saying they used to offer like a monthly membership or something where you can go unlimited, but they kind of like did away with that because there was like some questionable characters that were going in there.
But what would you do every month? It's like, oh, I'm gonna go to the Death Museum and spend my day off there. But you've seen everything and you've read everything. What the fuck do you think? I mean,
that's my question. Do they change like exhibits, or is it the same thing always?
I think it's the same thing. I know that they upgraded it, right? Because they moved it. Yahira was telling us that they moved it, so they had like more stuff. And there's another location in New Orleans. I think there might be one other one, but I don't remember.
Yeah, my fascination with that place too, it was the Jim Jones stuff. Like, I've always been fascinated with like Heaven's Gate and Jim Jones, and like the cults that are like, well, we're gonna do a mass suicide. Have $1.75 in your pocket because that's how much it costs for a bus ride when you go to heaven. And so they have some of those bed sheets and the actual Nikes that the people wore in that mass suicide. And then there was the other one that freaks me out. It was near the auto section, but it makes me scared because I have a lot of stuff in the garage that's like on wires or like up above hinging. But some guy
the
lawnmower fell on his head. So I'm just like, that's scary. Yeah, but it was one of those old school lawnmowers, you know, with the little blades. So yeah, just imagine it swinging down and going like. just going right in your head.
Yeah. And it didn't even kill him right away because I read the whole thing. He it made a big gash in his head and he passed out. And because he was passed out, no one found him, he bled out. But it's funny because some of the most disturbing stuff isn't even the gory stuff. Like you said, the Jim Jones stuff, like they don't have any pictures of like the dead bodies or anything, but they have his video playing and they have some of this, like the bedding there. And it's just that also gives me like bad juju because you're just kind of like, oh man, this is what these people saw. Like this is the guy that did all this. And so it's like, it's very like philosophical, but I'm glad I went. It just took me a while to digest what I was seeing. So I mean, hey, we could have done an episode at the Death Museum. You know, we are popular enough, 2 billion listeners worldwide. I'm sure they would have let us do something on the rooftop or something. Would you ever go to something like that, Austin?
Yeah, I would go to something like that just out of sheer morbid curiosity. It sounds like a interesting time. I don't know if
Yeah.
I can stomach it because I'm like you, like seeing real things is a little different. You know, movies is one thing, but like when it's real, it's like that's kind of different. But I would at least give it a try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe don't open it with the Black Dahlia pictures. That was a little bit of a kick to the head in the beginning. It's like,
Maybe don't open quite so hard.
yeah, you got to ease it in, you know, but I think it's funny because it ends with animals. I'm like, that's the palate cleanser. It's like the animal skulls and the stuffed animals. Cause they have like, you know, obviously people's dogs pass away. And so they have some stuffed and some of them are actually pretty legit looking. I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if one just gets up and starts walking around.
Yeah, you were looking for a cat for Olivia. I'm like, oh, well, maybe we could ask them if they're selling this
Oh
stuffed
my
cat
God.
because that was a really good cat. I'm like, hey, yeah, that's my Muffy.
I'll live
They
forever.
so they actually have image. I don't. It's not like a autopsy or anything, but they talk about how Brigitte Bardot died in a car accident with her 2 chihuahuas. And I was like, well, that stinks. Well, they have one of the chihuahuas there stuffed.
My
So if you want to
goodness.
see Brigitte Bardot's chihuahua that died with her in the car accident, he's there or she. But yeah, so I just wanted to discuss that for a minute because it is cruel summer, and you know, Doug decided to make my summer very cool and take me to the Death Museum.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, it started off with a bang, like just like holy shit, what the fuck is this? And that's pretty much how Ebola Syndrome, our movie we're talking about today, starts with like holy shit, what the fuck? This is
Yeah,
intense.
it starts with a literal and metaphorical bang. So we are reviewing Ebola Syndrome from 1996, not rated, directed by, and I apologize if I mispronounce these names, directed by Herman Yau, written by Ting Chao, starring Anthony Chow Sang, Wang Yingming, Wang, and Fuyong Sing. Basically, it's about a Chinese restaurant worker wanted for murder in Hong Kong, contracts Ebola in South Africa, becomes immune to it, and then unknowingly spreads the virus there, then comes back to Hong Kong and continues infecting people.
That's a very broad
Pretty
brush statement.
well, I was gonna say it's. I mean, I don't like getting into the nitty gritty of like everything because if people want to see it, I'm pretty sure our numbers aren't going to be super high for this episode because it's not a very famous movie. But if people listen to it and they kind of want to see it, I want to leave it up to them to see, because really it's gross and it's disturbing, but it's not bad. I think Ada said this about the last couple of movies. Like this is a good movie, which you know, with Cruel Summer, it just so happens that we're picking movies that are good, but not necessarily fun to watch, unless you're Doug, but we all know how that is. Um, but yeah, so it does start off with the bang. And we starts off with our main character, Kai, who is hooking up with a woman who is married. Her daughter is, oh, and this gives me such anxiety. Maybe it's because it was the 90s and times were different back then, but like, I don't care how hot the guy is. If I'm home with my daughter, I'm not sending her outside to be by herself while we hook up. Like, so she sends her outside to hook up, and then I think was it her uncle?
Yeah,
No, it was
her
her dad
uncle,
finds her.
yeah, her dad, and the thing is, he works for a they don't really explain it, but the dad is like a mob boss, and he has his goons with him, and he's hooking up with the mob boss's wife.
Yeah.
Not a good
So
idea.
No,
nope. Actually, that's what the movie Bound is about, but it takes a lesbian twist. Go watch that. So not a good idea, in fact. And the wife, so the husband comes home, interrupts their party. The wife's like, I don't, he made me do this. And it's like, uh-huh. And so it's funny because like in the beginning, he seems like a normal guy. Like he's kind of Actually, no, I lied. He's talking to her kind of ugly and during it. Which is funny because I saw it's on YouTube. So I started watching it on YouTube, but the subtitles were in Spanish. But I know enough to know what they were saying. And I was like, this is very dirty.
Oh yeah, you got to see what the subtitles say because I don't know if Apple TV because you guys watched it on
Oh
Apple
no,
TV.
I saw the English subtitle one. It's before I rented it on Apple TV. I saw the Spanish subtitle for just like 10 minutes. And I was like, I know what he's saying, and that's not very appropriate for my
Naughty.
Christian Texas self. But yeah, so basically she's like, no, he made me do this, he made me do this. And so the husband beats him up and he makes his wife pee on him and all this stuff. And so
Pee on his face.
yeah, but I was like, I don't know if he's
He
gonna
had
like
some
that or not.
aim. That was crazy. I was like, wow, that's
Well,
that's skill.
yeah, so he like beats him up, and then I think the funniest subtitle on the 4K it says this, but when the mob boss is like, "Oh, you want to fuck my wife? Okay," and he gives him these gardening scissors or like I don't know what's the name of those scissors, like pruning
Shears? Pruning
shears,
shears,
yeah. And so he gives him the shears, and he's like, "Cut your dick off." He's like, "No, please, sir, no, please. It's so small as it is. If I cut the tip of it off, there'll be nothing left."
Yeah, well, because he's gonna cut it off first, and so because the reason why he tricks him is he's like has a breakdown. He's like, I'll kick it. I'll cut it off myself. I'll cut it off myself. And so the husband's like, okay, yeah, you do it. I'll watch. And I'm like, this is not gonna go the way you think it's gonna go.
Mistake.
Yeah, mistakes were made. But so basically, as we all know, he takes the scissors, which fun fact is the same scissors they used as inside. I'm just kidding, it's not. But basically stabs the guy in the dick, kills everybody. Does he kill the wife? Yeah, no, wait, does he kill the wife?
He does. Yeah, he goes up to the
Yeah.
wife. He's like, "Oh, you want to lie about me?" He said, "I fucking you." Okay, well, and then he cuts her tongue out with the shears.
Oh, yeah, which would not have killed her. My sister bit her tongue off when she was young on accident
Oh
because he
shit.
just cut the tip of her tongue off and like blood squirts out and then she's on the floor dead. And I was like, that would not have killed her, but whatever. But yeah, so somehow she dies. And then the little girl comes out of her room. And so he starts throwing gasoline. I'm like, if they light this little girl on fire, I'm going to stop watching this damn movie. Because damn it, the only good actress in that scene was the little girl. And so before he's about to light her on fire, someone walks in and breaks up the party and he runs away.
But it's yeah, and then the thing is, Kai is like you're gonna follow him throughout the whole movie, but I think the dialogue like in the beginning just fits it perfectly because some guy opens the door, he's like, "What's going on in here?" And right before he's about to torch the little girl, he's like, "I'm killing people. What does it look like?" And he just walks
Oh,
out the door.
He's like, what? Yeah, I love that. He's like, what do you think's going on here? And the guy's like, okay. So sorry
yeah.
to interrupt the party.
I feel like the subtitles may not have been super accurate because they kept saying bully, like they bully me. And I was like, I don't really think he's saying bully. Maybe there's not a word that translated exactly, but a lot of the dialogue, or maybe he's meant to sound childish. So like a lot of it sounds childish. Like, you know, instead of being like, no, you know, they torture me or they're fucking with me, it's like, you bully me? You think it's okay to bully me? I'm like, okay,
Yeah, there
third
might be
grader.
some weird thing because I know, I mean, not nowadays, but they're speaking Cantonese. So it's like a longer, they extenuate certain words. And Cantonese is kind of dying out in China right now. So, you know, in Hong Kong and everything. It's kind of like an older language. So I'm not sure if
Yeah.
the people like the Gen Zers are like, I don't know what they mean. Let's just say, you know, that's sus or what does Gen Z say? So they probably don't know how to translate the older language.
I did notice some spelling errors though too in the subtitles, so
I
that
saw
might
that too.
yeah, there was a couple things that were misspelled or like they didn't have the right pronunciation or whatever. I was like, okay, so it's not perfect, but you know.
Hey, it's fine. We understood where it was going, and it's super like basically if you want to watch this, everybody, um, Vinegar Syndrome's having a sale. I don't know for how long. I believe it's $18, and then you can rent it on Apple TV for $4. So that's the only place online that you can watch it. When you watch it, you won't be surprised why. What really surprising about this movie is the different locations that it goes to, because it doesn't take place in China. I mean, the beginning and the end do, but most of it takes place in South Africa. And it was funny because like I sometimes have really bad memory, and it switches scenes. He's working at a restaurant, just kind of keeping to himself, and there's a lot of like European people. There's some Black people in the restaurant and stuff, and I'm like, where are they? And I was like, maybe they're in New York, but then I heard someone talking, and I was like, that's not New York. And then I forgot. I was like, oh yeah, they said they're in South Africa. So he goes to work in South Africa. Don't know why.
And this is like 20 years later.
Yeah.
Just so we could, because it'll make sense at the end of it. But yeah, it jumps 20 years later. So he escaped the police
Yeah.
and he lives in South Africa now, working at a restaurant. And he's the same guy. He's the same actor in The Untold Story. So it's kind of like, and it's the same director too. So it's kind of like a somewhat sequel. But I feel like this one's just in your balls. It's like, fuck you. I'm going to say fuck you to the entire audience. So Untold Story kind of ends how this one started with the shocking scene. But this one here is basically just like, fuck you. This is a category 3 movie, and all you people complaining about it, we're gonna say fuck you in the ass and fuck you 2 times. So
This is a category 3 movie. And if you don't know what a category 3 movie is, you can rewind back to actually when it was Doug, Austin, and myself again. I believe we were reviewing There's Nothing Out There, when I had a little bit of a meltdown and yelled at Doug for making me watch
Oh,
such
no, it was
filth.
Evil Bong.
Evil Bong.
Yeah, we were talking about how he makes you watch all this filth.
I didn't make you watch Evil Bong. I don't like that movie myself.
No, it's because you recommended me. I think you were recommending me something. We'll have to rewind and I'll put the sound clip in so everybody can hear me yell at you again. Austin actually brought it up the other day. He's like, "What was that episode where you yelled at Doug? It was like the funniest thing." So he found it.
In the YouTube video, you zoomed in on me, which I'm just dying laughing, and then there's like a record scratch, and then you yell at Doug. It was one of the funniest moments. Oh my god.
So you haven't seen anything else besides The Whale?
No, I did watch some other movies, some Category 3 films from Unearthed Films. One of them's
here we
called...
go.
Yeah.
Can't you just watch something normal, Doug? Anybody on this podcast. Y'all keep making me watch this stupid ass shit and keep bringing up these stupid ass movies, and I have to sit here and watch and see what all this shit is, and I just want to watch something normal for once. I'm sorry. Austin is giving me PTSD here.
Good times.
I'm sorry, Doug. I'll never yell at you like that again.
No, I'm curious. It wasn't the Greasy Strangler, right?
I don't think so.
It was Evil Bong.
Oh, no, I didn't make you watch that.
Or maybe The Ginger Dead Man. It was one of the full moon movies that we did together.
Yeah, I know it was during full moon month, and I was because you started talking about something, and I was like, Doug, why can't we just? Well, actually, I wasn't yelling at you. It was the whole situation, and I just took it out on you. So for that, I apologize.
No worries. I'm the human punching bag. I'm like this fucking meat thing that gets used later in this movie.
Oh my god.
Yes, because Kai does have. So he called him his brother, but I think they're just partners, right? Or the guy owns the business. So yeah, I think he was just using it like bro. So he's working with this new partner. They have this really nice restaurant that looks like it's successful. He has this beautiful wife, but then again, if you put that hair on any woman, she's going to look beautiful. And she's kind of a bitch. Sorry. But she is mean, and she starts like, she just talks down to him or bullies him, as he says. And it's so funny because he says something like, I know you got a big dick. And he's like, what? He's like, I can hear you fucking your wife every night. I know you got a big dick. And I was like, wow. So the part that Doug loves to talk about, he hears them going at it. Are they doing it in the restaurant?
Yeah, so they kind of have like a Bob's Burgers thing where their house is above the restaurant, or next to it or something. So the manager and his wife are fucking, but it's like the weirdest sex scene I've ever seen. Like, unless that's how people fuck in South Africa, but they do is they like hold on to each other, like,
yeah, they're like seesawing each other.
Yeah, it's a seesaw.
So she's beautiful, but actually I was very surprised at what he was hiding under his shirt, because man was ripped. I was like, is that the same guy with the glasses, the nerdy one? So, and
he takes his glasses off. I'm like, that's the same guy. Holy shit, this guy goes to the gym in his kitchen. So
yeah,
Clark Kent effect.
Yeah, and so Kai, so the funny thing about Kai is that I don't know but I read the whole book, so maybe that's why I'm looking more into it. But I noticed throughout the whole movie they always say, "What's that smell? What's that stink?" So apparently Kai sweats and he smells putrid, and he never takes a shower or anything. So he's constantly sweating, and he has this like putrid body odor to him. And he works in the kitchen, so it's like, how do people not smell this guy? So Mikey, do you want to explain what happens next when he's like, oh, I want to go find a hooker to fuck, but no one wants to fuck me.
Are you talking about with the steak?
The steak, yeah. He overhears and listens to his boss and wife fuck.
Yeah, so I would love to. I'd be honored to. There was nothing more this evening that I would have loved doing than to explain to you what happens in this next scene. So he's obviously really turned on. No one's having sex with him, so he decides to take matters into his own hands, literally. And instead of just like masturbating like a normal person, he goes and gets a pork cutlet. You know, they do say pork is the closest thing to human flesh, so sure. He could have warmed it up a little bit though, but straight out of the refrigerator, cuts a slit in it. I have never seen one of those, but apparently that's what a vagina looks like. And then he continues to penetrate the piece of pork until he's done, into which he basically sticks it back in the refrigerator, ultimately marinating pork in said baby gravy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you never been to a Denny's before to get the chickens, the pork special? That's basically what it is. You know, the chefs are all coming in their meat pocket pussies.
I wonder what a moon over my hammy is, if you know what I mean.
It's exactly what it sounds like. Bonnie Rotten's the chef, and same with Adriana Chechik and you know, Bobby Starr.
Sure.
John Holmes, you know John Holmes.
Oh yes, John Holmes. Yes, I do know him. Austin, who's your favorite porn star? I'm just kidding.
So
this is not the episode. This is not the episode to bring your baby on. I'm sorry.
It was not, but you know, it's fine. She's passed out and she doesn't speak English yet, so she's fine.
She must be excited. Her first movie. You remember baby's first movie, Ebola Syndrome? We had so many memories together.
I'm taking night shift with her, so I was like, "There's really no way around this. I have to," because I wasn't going to show Gabby that. There's no fucking way she'll watch a Category 3 film. So I was like, "All right, I'm going to put you down after I feed you and change you. I'm going to avert your eyes from the TV. Just don't look terrible influence."
I used to do that too, but actually, what I found really helpful is the times that Olivia woke up in the middle of the night and she couldn't sleep, or she just like seemed like she had a ton of energy. I would actually put on, I have like the 8-pack of Universal Monster movies, the black and white ones.
Oh yeah.
And when she was like obviously way too little to even know what was going on, but she would be like mesmerized by the black and white movies. And so like,
isn't there something about kids, they have a very limited color, like when they're first born, so anything black and white, that's what Gabby said. They're drawn to like black and white objects, because we have a little black and white stuffed animal for her on like right next to her, and she's got 3 or 4 of them, and she's drawn to that black and white one. So must be something to do with black and white.
I heard something regarding the colors, but go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, Austin, it's time for you to load up on Three Stooges, the old shorts.
Yes. So. Oh my God, I'll have to do that.
Or CJ. But yeah, so basically after that, the restaurant is kind of getting, what's the word? Like taken advantage of. They go to I think he's like a butcher they get their pigs from, and the butcher obviously cuts the white guy a deal and is all friendly, and then they come up and he's kind of mean to them, and he tries to sell them a pig for really expensive. So they have a idea to go, I guess, did they hear about this tribe that sells pigs, or they just went to the tribe that sold?
I think, well, they just say like, oh, you know, I know a tribe that sells pigs. We can trick them and rip them off and basically get 2 for the price of 1 that we'd get here. So, which
they basically did. And so it's funny because they go to the tribe and he's like, how much for a pig? And I think he says like 200. And I think the other guy said 500, like the mean guy. So like, okay, we'll take 2. And he's like, okay, 2 is 200 plus 2. And Kai's like, it's 300. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, 300. So they take advantage of him. And then they open up the bag and it's dead people. And he's like, oh, what the fuck? And he's like, no, not that one, the other one. It's like pigs. So they get the pigs. This is where it gets, and you know, I was thinking about this. So just to fast forward to this part, there's a woman on the floor. I'm assuming she's dying. She doesn't really look sick. She looks healthy. She just looks like she's on the floor dying, I guess. And you know, she's from a tribe, so she's wearing like tribal gowns and her breasts are out, and so it turns Kai on. So when his partner's not looking, he goes and he hits her, and then he kills her because she, I think, is either convulsing or making noise. I forgot.
Yeah, she had Ebola. Same with the tribe there. Now I don't know on the Apple TV version if it's censored or not, but he bashes her head in like 25 times with the rock, like after he. And then the whole tribe is like actually biting off real chicken's head. I don't know if that was in the Apple TV.
That was in there.
That was in there. Just like the frogs. Were those real frogs that were being cut up? Because I was like, oh, those look real. They were like hopping around and they were just chopping frogs.
I'm sure, yeah, but they eat them. So
Yeah,
Oh.
it was the only trivia actually for the movie is that the actor wanted everybody to know that that was not him cutting up the frogs. It was actually like a trained chef. He found it to be cruel, and he said it takes a special skill to prepare a frog like that, which he did not know. But I can tell it they're preparing him to eat, so I don't.
Yeah.
It's different if you're just killing an animal, just for killing an animal's sake.
Still kind of
But
shocking though. I was not expecting to see real animal deaths on screen. I was like, oh shit.
I
Yeah,
don't
and they're
know if I
like
was paying.
spitting. Well, the thing is, like, they're doing the ritual that they do. Like, these people they're dying of Ebola, and the witch doctor is like chewing the chicken's head off and spraying the blood all over the people. And to me, that looked real. So they're getting sprayed with
Yeah.
real chicken blood.
Also,
Yeah,
they
the
had wild
chickens might.
turkey. I didn't know that. He's like drinking wild turkey whiskey. I was like, I didn't know they had that there. Oh,
Yeah,
fuck.
the chickens, I wasn't 100% sure if it was real or not, just because like it did look really real, but there's some parts where it seemed like it bled a little bit too much to be believable for being a small chicken. But it could be, if they really did find a tribe that actually prepares chicken like that, they could have, just
I think
filmed it.
that first one was real because like after the head gets cut off, the wings just start fluttering around, and I'm like, that's too convincing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe I'm just a monster because that didn't really bug me. But honestly, the frogs in the beginning, I mean, because they're not torturing them. That's how you kill a
No.
chicken. It's just being recorded.
Yeah.
The frogs, I didn't think were real because I didn't see them moving. Maybe that was just me. Because
There
he
was
had
one
like,
that was hopping around and he pulls it back and just cuts his fucking head off. And I was like, oh God.
see,
Yeah.
don't text and watch movies, guys. Um, but anyway, so they get the pigs, they go home. Kai has contracted Ebola, which I did everybody a favor. And I looked up what Ebola was. I know it's a virus, I'm not that dumb. But Ebola is a rare but severe fatal illness in humans. The virus is transmitted to people from wild animals and spreads in the human population through human to human transmission. The average Ebola case fatality rate is 50%. I couldn't really get what the symptoms were other than a fever. And I think they said, was it convulsions? Because when they would get sick in the movie, I was like, that doesn't seem accurate because it seemed like it was very dramatized. No, I think that's
Yeah,
the word.
they sit there and like
Dramatized?
convulse. Some are acting better than others, but
Well, because it's like it seems like it just happens right away. Like you're fine, all of a sudden like, "Bleh." And I feel like you'd probably like slowly get there.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was like, let me see what the symptoms are because maybe I don't know, maybe Ebola is just a terrifying thing that we don't have, luckily, over in America. Do we have it here?
we had an outbreak. Well, the thing is, it wasn't big, but it was all over the news. I think in like 2011 or 12. Yeah, it was like all over the place, and they had like people saying like, "Oh no, I have Ebola," and their eyeballs would pop out and stuff. They were doing it on like Saturday Night Live and stuff like that. So little insensitive, but whatever.
Yeah. It looks like Ebola mostly occurs in Africa, based off of what I'm looking at here. But yeah, so now Kai has Ebola and he goes back home and then he decides this is the time to continue my savage ways and is that his partner's wife?
Yeah, he's like, I'm tired of you bullying me.
Yeah.
But then he's in the kitchen, so he's like pouring sweat and he's like all pale, and he cuts his finger on a knife and he starts serving it to the customers. So that's how he's
Yeah.
spreading his Ebola. And of course, Kai is like the most disgusting, and he's the main character. Like in Untold Story, it jumps around from the cops to him, so you're not really following this main character. But this one is just he's the worst person you can imagine, and of course, he is asymptomatic to Ebola, so he could spread it, but he just
Yeah.
doesn't suffer any of the stuff.
Didn't they say something like 1 in 10 million people or something like that? Yeah. So
Yeah.
he's the 1 in 10 million.
Can you get Ebola through sex?
I imagine you could.
The exchange of bodily fluids.
Mm-hmm.
There
like
is
an
no
open
evidence
sore or
that
something.
Ebola virus can spread through sex or contact with vaginal fluids from a woman who has had Ebola.
Oh, but she pukes in his face.
That's right. She
Yeah.
does puke in his face too.
Yeah.
Well, that's what because I was wondering, because the movie makes it a point to make him a rapist. This end, I might need y'all to fill in some blanks for me because sometimes I look down for an extended period of time and then I will look back up and be like, where the fuck is this movie?
What did I miss?
Yeah, they go back to China. Also, the little girl in the beginning that got doused in fire, she shows up again, wanting revenge. She doesn't get it.
Well, she doesn't realize Kai is the same guy that murdered her parents. She's like, I smelled that smell that I smelled when I was a kid, and that's why he stinks really bad. She's like, I smell it again.
She was suspicious about it because she was talking to someone about it, wasn't she?
Yeah, and she's like, that cook looks familiar, but I'm just going crazy. And he's like, oh, don't. That's nobody you know. You remember your therapist and all your therapy you went to? You stop thinking that. So.
Yeah, and so I think that's all that happens in South Africa. He goes back to China and lives like with a wife and is like,
well, he
I
has
don't know.
prostitutes over at his hotel, so that's what he does. He gets money because well, yeah. So he assaults and basically makes the restaurant owner's wife like go down on him. But then there's a scene where like he beats the manager over the head with a table, and then he rips his head off through the glass doors. Yeah, and then he like kills the wife.
Oh, it came off.
Yeah, he's like, oh, popped up like a dandelion.
Yeah.
And then one of the nephews or his brother or something comes in. He's like, oh, I'm here to see the boss. And he comes in, he's like, oh, he's not here. And then I forget how he kills him, but he basically just bashes. Do you remember?
Yeah, he slips in the blood. I remember that. He doesn't even see the blood when he comes in and slips on it. And then I'm pretty sure he beats him with the table. This man loves like killing people with tables. I don't know what it is. Tables, chairs, everything.
Yeah, chairs and tables. Yeah.
He kill the wife, his partner's wife with the table also.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Table like right to the jaw.
Jesus. Yeah. She was beautiful though. I liked her. I mean, she was mean, but I mean, she didn't deserve that.
No.
Well, I'll just give you a little because I thought it was really funny because this is the one movie, like I said, where the character is just so nasty. But the wife and the manager, like before they get killed, Kai's like on the couch and he's like sleeping because they're like, oh no, he has Ebola or whatever, and the wife is like. He's like, let's get rid of him. Let's dump him in the back alley. Let's dump him in the river. Like, I don't give a shit. He's like, but he's still alive. She's like, I don't give a shit. Just chop him up, dump his body somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, she wasn't I mean, you could tell she's that character in horror movies that's such a bad person. You're like, something really bad's going to happen to her. And it does. And it's funny because I forgot about that part until you mentioned it. I was like, oh, yeah. Oh, so I don't know if you guys know of any movies like this, but I was watching this and the part where he starts assaulting the partner's wife, I was like, you know what? This happened a lot in the 90s, like movies that were just like, here's rape. It was definitely not as looked down upon it as in movies these days, because I remember that there was this movie I watched in the 90s. I was way too young to watch it. But I was like being babysat by like my older he was a family member, but he was like not that much older than me. And we were watching Showtime or HBO, one of those, and it was like a erotic action movie about sea snakes. And like I just remember sea snakes and a woman and a lot of rape happening on this boat.
Very Freudian movie.
Yeah, because sea snakes are really dangerous, so that's like it brought in like a little bit of a creature feature element to it, but who knows? With that said, Kai, does he get married and have a kid, or does he meet a woman that has a kid?
No, he meets a woman, and that's the part I don't get sometimes. Like he meets this woman who was like, I guess he knew her, but they don't really go into like how they met before. But this woman has a kid, and she's with this heroin addict, and he'll do anything for like a few dollars so he can score some more heroin. And he's like, oh, I'll buy your wife from you. She's like, no, I don't want Kai. And he's like, I'll buy your wife. Here's some money. Go buy some heroin. He's like, okay, give me the money and you can have her and you can have my kid. I got to go buy some heroin.
It was very strange, but also because Kai looks so different. Like he looks like cleaned up, less gross. I was like, is he supposed to be like?
Well, the reason he did that was because he was trying to, I'm going to use a big PBS word, incognitus. Because he's like, oh, I'm going to go back to mainland, or not mainland China, but Hong Kong. Even though I'm wanted by the police in Hong Kong, if I change up my appearance, then they won't know. Because
then the audience do even know.
No, they did. No, I didn't. Well, I knew, but he was doing this thing with like he got like two escorts, and he's like, okay, who wants to suck my dick first? Ooh, yeah. And then he's like throwing money at them, and then that's how he spreads Ebola to the sex workers, and then the sex workers spread it to other people. So it's starting to spread like wildfire, baby.
Is there a bird I'm hearing?
It's Doug's.
Yeah, that's mine. Hopefully,
Oh, I don't think I've ever heard the bird before.
well,
Heard the bird.
if it makes any more noise, this will be the last time.
Poor baby. I don't. So it's also weird. I don't like, because it seems like a long time goes by from South Africa when he goes back to China. I don't know if he would have Ebola for that long. I mean,
Well,
I
he doesn't
guess.
wash his ass or anything, so I'm sure well, with being asymptomatic, he's just like, oh well, hey, shit, I don't even know if I'm sick or not, but I'll keep licking these tits.
Ew.
It's weird because he showed symptoms for it initially, but then I guess you just get over them if you're asymptomatic, and then they just don't show. But yeah, he started spreading that shit like you said, like wildfire.
Huh. Well, actually, interesting. I don't know if Minnesota is lying to us or not, but the Minnesota Department of Health says Ebola does not stay in the body after a patient has fully recovered. Ebola has been found in semen and breast milk for longer periods of time. People who are recovering need to take additional steps so that others are not exposed to these fluids. So, seems like maybe you can get it from semen. We're learning so much today. Thanks, director of Ebola Syndrome. But yeah, so I don't know. Apparently, it turns into 28 days later with Ebola. He starts infecting everybody. Everybody's sneezing on everybody. But Austin, I wanted to ask you specifically, did this movie make you think of any movie that we reviewed recently?
That we reviewed recently?
Mm-hmm.
On my podcast or this podcast?
On your podcast?
No.
What was the last movie we reviewed, Austin?
Oh my god. Friday the 13th part 3?
Oh my god, Cabin Fever.
Oh Jesus. Yes,
Cabin Fever, Austin Fever. Cabin Fever.
Cabin Fever. Yeah, sorry. I edited that one in the hospital while we were, with the baby, so I completely forgot I even uploaded that to the internet already.
Your brains are mashed potatoes right now.
Oh my god, I'm so tired. Yes, it did kind of remind me of that, which is funny that I watched two kind of contagious, movies within a week. Obviously this one's hardcore, but yes, definitely vibes like Cabin Fever.
Yeah, I was watching it and I was like, I get a little bit of Cabin Fever vibes to this. Like, I don't know if maybe Eli Roth saw this and was like, you know what?
I can do this within the woods.
Yeah, I can do this with less rape.
In fact, everyone was consenting adults in Cabin Fever.
Someone told me, I was one of the episodes we reviewed that was like, Eli Roth had to have watched this because it's just like it. And I was like, was that Doug? Did he say that about Ebola syndrome? I don't remember. But neither here nor there. But yeah, so I think everyone dies except him. Actually,
no,
he dies.
But he takes the so yeah, after that he with the wife, and they're like, oh, they find out that like, oh shit, Kai was wanted for murder like 20 some years ago, and now we found him, and basically when he finds out, he the lady and the daughter like lock him in the apartment. Then he goes out, he has like a butcher knife, then he grabs the little girl, so he's holding her as hostage, and he's running out, and this is when like the big climax happens. So you get all the people in their Ebola suits and stuff like that, the hazmat suits, and they're chasing him around, and then the wife ends up having control. And I can't talk today. And heeth that soweth. There you go. The grass is green, the earth is blue. Okay, there you go. I'm better now. But yeah, so he ends up taking the daughter hostage, and he's like, I got her. I got Ebola. He's like, I have Ebola. And yeah, so everyone's like keeping their distance. But you want to finish the climax, Mikey?
I don't remember what happened.
You don't remember what happens?
Well, see, here's the thing.
Vais la verga, puto. No.
I liked this movie, but I felt as soon as he came back to China, I was done. I was like, okay, it's overstayed its welcome. I was having a great time. I'm not interested in this third act.
It did slow down. It did slow down a lot in the third act, a little bit.
Yeah, like it was. I thought it was, for what it was decent. it was made well. I was also surprised at the quality of the film, because when I think of like category 3 films, I automatically think like, the vomit doll movies or whatever. But no, this actually was pretty well made.
It did look great. I was surprised.
Yeah, and then they go back to China in the final, I don't know, maybe like 25 minutes ish, and I was like, okay, we don't need this part. So that's why I was like, I need you guys to fill in the end, because I wasn't really paying that much attention to the end.
Yeah, so I don't know if what this says about me, but I've watched this movie probably 5 times since I've got it. But I've watched it with like my friends Angie, and then like I'll have like movie nights where they come over and like, let's watch a crazy fucked up movie. What do you have? So we'd show that, and then my sister wanted to see it. I call her Respucia, and she's like, this is trifling. Do you have a copy of it? And yeah, so we did that. So I've seen. So this would be my 5th time seeing it. But yeah. So what's crazy at the last third act? It slows down for me too, but I feel like it's a little scarier for the third act, because it's just you see him coming back into this relationship of this lady and the kid, and to me that's kind of scary, because that's like you hear a lot of real stories like that, like abusive ex-husband or ex-partners and stuff coming back into someone's life, and it's just like, shit, now I have a kid, and I know this person's a psychopath, but maybe they've changed, and that's what was scary to me, because he just like kind of waltzes into her apartment, back into her life. But anyway, she like he grabs the little girl, and he's like holding her by the neck, and he's like chasing off people and spitting in their faces, saying, I have Ebola, I have Ebola. And what happens is like halfway through it, he realized that he snaps the little girl's neck. He's like, oh, well, you're dead now. Nothing you can do for me. He just like drops her dead in the street. And so he's running around, and then one of the hazmat guys, like, he gets cut up, and he realizes he's going to get Ebola now because Kai spit in his suit. And then I think it was he runs into a back alley, and there's a restaurant like place with hot oil. And so the restaurant, one of the cooks ends up torching it and setting Kai on fire. And there's a really cool fire stunt where he's catching on fire, and he's like, still when he's on fire, he's like, Ebola, Ebola, Ebola. And then he gets creamed by a car so that was a really cool stunt, because that was real. Someone was on fire, stuntman was on fire, running in the middle of the road, and then getting hit by a car and sliding up and sliding down. So kudos to whoever did that without breaking anything.
And then he gets like shot 5 times in the face too. That guy comes over, is like, bam, bam, bam. I was like, I think you got him. He's on fire. I don't think he's coming back from that one there, guy.
Yeah, so as terrible as a character he got his comeuppance, because yeah, he was set on fire, he was creamed by a car, and then shot 5 times point blank in the face.
Yeah, I do remember someone being on fire, but I didn't see who it was. And then I remember him slicing up the guy's hazmat suit. So you've filled in my crevices of missing knowledge. Thank you.
Oh, there you go. No cream filling.
But you know what? Don't feel bad about liking this movie, Doug. I have a friend that also loves this movie, and when he found out that I was watching it, he was like, interesting. So he's probably going to ask me about it later, about what I thought. But like I said, decent movie. It's like the Museum of Death. It's not for everybody. It's intense. It's going to make you feel icky. But it's art, so.
And it's well put together, and it's air conditioned.
Yes, both of those. But yeah, Austin, what are your final thoughts on the movie?
So as crazy and as chaotic as it was, I did find myself enjoying just how wild it was. I really hadn't seen anything like that to that level. Of course, Kai is a piece of shit. He gets his comeuppance, which is good, because he is just a horrible human being. And like I said, the third act did slow down a little bit, but I have to agree with Doug, and it is kind of creepy, because he does waltz back into their lives, and the lady, I guess his wife or whatever, sees him on TV, and that's when the whole everything goes bonkers. But it was just, it's not for everyone. You're right, but if you like crazy fucked up shit, then boy, do we have a movie for you, Ebola Syndrome from 1996. Check it out.
You heard it here, folks. Frightmares Fresh, certified
Fresh.
Surprisingly, it's not that. I think Apple said that on the tomato meter it has like a 20%. So, but you know what? I can see people be more. Oh my God, why can't I talk today? I can see people being more vocal about hating it than being vocal about liking it.
Yeah.
So, and Doug, we know you like it. You want to say anything about the overall film?
Oh yeah, no. Well, this is one that, like I said, I seen the Untold Story first, and I was like blown away. That Untold Story is like one of my top 10 favorite movies. But when I saw this is like, it's like the Mad Magazine. Okay, for example, let me just say it's like Mad Magazine, like Untold Story is Mad Magazine, and this is Cracked Magazine. It's like the brother, and it's like it's never gonna be as good as Mad Magazine. But for those of you who don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about, Gen G's like, huh? What the fuck is he talking about? That's what it is. So this is a great movie, but I feel like it's overshadowed by Untold Story. But no, this one, and the thing is, category 3 and just Hong Kong films in general are different because this would be like content you would see in like a trauma movie or like an extreme like exploitation film. But it's done, it's funny because it's so over the top, like the dialogue and just how horrible of a person. Look at this, I'm spitting, I'm spreading Ebola into the microphone. Yeah, and so he's just such a horrible person, and I hate to say it, but this is my 5th time watching it. This is a black comedy, you know what I mean? Like it's just pitch black comedy. I feel like it's not that's the difference where this and Trauma comes in. Like if this was Trauma, it would be over the top, but you would see like kind of cheap effects, and it would have like weird little like cartoonishly silly things. This doesn't go anything cartoonish. It is so mean-spirited and so nasty and so gross and distasteful and just like a big fuck you to the audience that it comes across like I don't know, like something like Freddy Got Fingered, but not a comedy, just like a pitch black comedy, if that makes sense. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, I can see that. But yeah, folks, that wraps up our perfectly timed episode for Ebola Syndrome. We have one more week, I think, of Cruel Summer left. Do we? Let me see. I think we do. Please hold. Yeah, one more week of Cruel Summer left, and then Jason and Aid are working on a Patreon bonus for Cruel Summer. So with that, we'll go ahead and give our special announcements. Everybody go support Austin at Frightmares Podcast. You can listen to them wherever you listen to our podcasts. You can find Doug on Instagram at Doug Bizarro. You can follow me at Horror and a Half Show. You can follow Austin at Frightmares Podcast or Pod.
Correct, podcast.
Frightmares Podcast. You can also follow the Mutant Goons from Beyond Instagram. That is where you'll see us as well. You can also find us on Facebook at Mutant Goons from Beyond in the groups category. If you want to look at our merchandise, you can go to slasherspod.redbubble.com to find our merchandise from coffee cans to dental dams, and you can support us on Patreon as well and get access to those special episodes that we bring to you each month. With that, I am here to say goodbye on behalf of Doug and Austin. We hope you have a cruel, cruel summer.
Well, I got to ask you guys one thing before we go.
Too late, bye.
We go, just say Ebola, 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 Ebola,
Voila!
Ebola, Ebola, Ebola. Come on, Mikey. You know you want to say
Ebola.